Hey guys, this is Oles from Nice Guys Construction. We are working in Hopedale, Massachusetts today. We are building this deck. This is our day 3 today. We have pretty much frame done, and let's talk about the things that's been done so far. My philosophy is there's completely no point to install expensive composite decking on top of the old half-rotted frame. You will win maybe 5 or 6 years until that frame will go, and you're gonna need to get rid of that decking and build it from scratch. So in terms of investments, there's completely no point in keeping the old frame. I would always suggest building a new one. Yes, it's some extra investment in labor, but the frame itself, the lumber itself, is not an expensive part of the deck build. After the demo is done, first step of the deck building will be a footing. We always try to use helical piles, which is basically a metal screw that is professionally installed by the engineer, screwed down into the ground until you have sufficient pressure to withstand the weight of the deck. If it's possible, we will always go for it because this is tested. You immediately know that this footing is up to spec. You have an engineer's report that you can show to the inspector that it's good, and you can build the same day as it is installed. Another option that we still sometimes need to do is the concrete footing, a sonotube footing. This footing in Massachusetts needs to go 4 feet down into the ground because our frost line is at 36 inches. So when we go 4 feet down, we're trying to go below that frost line so the frost cannot pull the footing out of the ground. That's what we're trying to achieve. The problem with it is that it's very time consuming. You need to dig the hole, you need to call inspector to come over, check that the hole that you dug is up to spec, that is deep enough, basically. He checks it, he measures it and gives you go ahead, you can go and pour the concrete. So we install the sonotube into it, pour concrete, wait for it to dry, then we drill into it and install base support. That's the hardware that will hold your 6x6 post. Some builders still using 4x4s, and it's a bad sign. I would recommend never to use 4x4. Even this, guys, sometimes might go bad. They might crack, they might start rotting from inside out. But 4x4 has another tendency. It likes to twist. And if the base of your deck, especially for the small porch, if the base already starts to twist, there's no chance the deck will not move. So always use 6x6s and look for contractors that would use 6x6s. And that's something that Massachusetts inspector will require. Okay, so the next thing that goes on top of your 6x6 is actually your beam. Sometimes it's enough for the weight of your deck to only have 2 plies. I don't see the point. Why to use 2 if you can use 3? This is definitely times sturdier. So like, what are you saving? 30 bucks at this board? There's completely no point in doing that. Something that is also very important to actually cover your beam with, if you're using the traditional PT framing, cover your beam with ice and water or any other tape that will basically protect the plies of the beam from water going in between of them. If you would take apart as many decks as I did, you would see that beams usually rot from inside out because water goes in between of 2 boards, sits there instead of evaporating and rots it from the inside out. So we always cover it, and that's what your builder should do. If he doesn't, ask him to do it. If you're building it yourself, do it. It's also like extra 200 bucks, not that expensive. Next step is to build the actual frame. I think it's an easy step. I think most homeowners could do it themselves. At the same time, as a deck builder, I would recommend hiring a deck builder. It's just something I'm supposed to do. So the next step of any deck build will be the joist, the actual deck, the actual frame of the deck. You need to use joists according to the span charts. This is, in Massachusetts, we use yellow southern pine, pressure treated, of course, if you use traditional framing. Easy way to figure out what kind of joist you need to use, basically a rule of thumb. So if it's 8 feet unsupported span, use 2x8. 10 feet unsupported span, use 2x10. 12 feet unsupported span, use 2x12. Unsupported span will be from your beam to your ledger or next beam. So here we have 18 feet of span. We have one beam at 8 feet, another beam at 8 feet, and 2 feet overhang. That's how it's allowed in Massachusetts up to code. Then you need to have mid-span blocking. So in this case, we have 4 feet from that beam, 4 feet from this beam. We have mid-span blocking, which not allow this joist to move from side to side. And what is more importantly, doesn't allow them to twist over time, especially if you will leave it sit without decking, because decking will also hold it in place. But if there's no decking and deck needs to sit for day 2 or week, it's very important to install mid-span blocking. Yeah, another important part is hardware. You need to use appropriate hardware for your joist size. So you can use 2x8 joist hanger, and it should be, if it's Simpson strong thigh joist hanger, it needs to have little letter Z in the end. Z means that it's rated for exterior. I took apart quite a bit of decks that had completely rotted hangers. Why are they rotted? Because they were not exterior hangers. They were hangers made for interior. And the very funny thing is that regular metal will be actually corroding even faster in contact with pressure-treated lumber. So yeah, use appropriate hangers. You can use 2x8 hanger for 2x10s and 2x8s. You can use 2x10 hanger for 2x10s and 2x12s. Usually, if you don't know any better, just ask someone, employee in the store, you know, they will let you know what you need to get. Something else I wanted to tell you that is required in Massachusetts is a deck tension tie kit. So it's basically a structural screw that pulls your deck towards your house. The main reason deck failure is deck pulling off of the house and falling down onto the ground. So deck tensioner will actually keep your deck in constant tension against your house, which supposed to help and is required by the code. Another just basically rule of thumb, you're supposed to have at least one lag screw in every joist bay of your deck. Another important thing, just how to know that your deck is built correctly. Everything on the deck, when it comes to hardware, needs to be tight from the ground up. So we have a post base drilled into our footing, then we have a post cap that attaches the post to the beam, then we have a hurricane tie that attaches our joist to the beam, and we also have, and that's pretty much it. And the last step of deck building is the 4x4 that will be in traditional framing. It's going to be what's holding your railings in place. So it's important to make sure that your post is plumb in both projections, and it needs to be properly screwed in place or locked in place. So we used, on this particular one, we used one leg on this side and 2 on the other. If it's out of plumb, we can use shims. Usually we would use plastic shims, like you can see one over there. And in rare cases when we need to leave deck hanging for a couple of days, because in this case, unfortunately, we didn't receive our decking in time, always try to avoid it, but we're dealing with suppliers. I would suggest to cover your post with the post sleeve, even temporarily, because this is something that will protect it from twisting while you're not here, while you're waiting for your next step. So that's it. So I think I covered all the important steps of deck framing. Again, it was day 3, framing the deck in Hopedale, Massachusetts. On day 4, we are planning to finish our stairs and probably will start working on our decking. Stay tuned and click on the next video.